Hi, G-Bolt.
G-Bolt here, and as you can see by that intro, I successfully completed my 2018 Appalachian Trail thru hike and summited Mount Katahdin on September 1st, 2018. The success would not have occurred without a great deal of planning and help provided by others in the community. I watched countless hours of video and read countless articles on equipment. Towards the end, all of us hikers agreed that some of the best information we got were through the post-trail hike videos versus the pre-trail hike videos. It was always interesting to see what was finished with versus what they actually started with. And so with that in mind, I decided to do a post-hike gear video, and in a way it'll also be an unpacking of the pack so you can see what I did almost on a daily basis while on the trail. This pack is packed the way it was coming out of the 100-mile wilderness. However, I used the pack to summit Mount Katahdin as a day pack, and so I did unpack it and repack it for the trip home. The trip home was via airlines, and so I do not have fuel canisters anymore, as those were prohibited, but everything else in the pack is the way it was in the 100-mile wilderness up through the Birches. The other thing I did was I weighed this on my luggage scale, and I finished with what you see here at 21 pounds. That does not include the water in the water bottle. I also carried a Gatorade water bottle in one pocket and another liter bottle in the other pocket, because water on the trail was one of my major concerns, and I carried probably more water than I needed to. I cannot stress enough how important hiking poles are. These trekking poles saved me numerous times. I did bend them twice on the trail early on and had them repaired throughout the trail. The nice thing about Lecky was that just about everybody sells the Lecky, and it came with free warranty and free repair on the lower half of the sticks. So when I bent them, I'd simply take them in and they would exchange them out. There were a couple of times I had bad clips. The clips went bad or broke, and those were replaced as well. I've got nothing but positives to say about Lecky, and they are my trekking poles of choice. The other thing that I did that was quite unusual was I used what some people call a man pouch. I call it a waist pack, and it's simply carried around my waist, and in it I would hold the phone that I'm videoing on. I would hold the Europod tripod that I used would hang out over, so that I could quickly grab that phone in and out and take pictures and video of my daily trail. And I also would store food in here. All my snacks went in here for the day. My lunch did not, but all my snacks did. If I were to do it again, I would definitely start with a good quality waist pack. I bought this one in Hot Springs, I believe, and it went the entire rest of the way with me and became a very needed piece of equipment. The pack itself is the ULA Ohm 2.0. In hindsight, I would now go for the Circuit because the Circuit carries more weight. As I said, currently this is 21 pounds, which is pushing its limits. By the time I added food and water and Gatorade bottles at the end, it sometimes got close to 40 pounds that I was carrying, and for that reason I would want a pack that's made to carry a little bit more than what the Ohm is made to carry. However, the Ohm works great for overnight trips, and for the rest of the backpacking, although it would not be my choice for a through hike, it is my choice for my everyday backpacking pack. And so I survived with it, and it carried well, but I could tell the difference between being 37 pounds versus 25 pounds. The pack itself came through pretty decent. I do have a hole in a pocket here that is worn through, so I'm going to have to get that hip pocket replaced or sewn or somehow repaired. I did switch to a smaller waist belt. I went from the large to the medium in Hot Springs and traded them out because of weight loss. Total weight loss for me was at 36 pounds, actually 49 pounds when I was sick in the middle of the trip and at my most weight loss, but that was an unusual circumstance, and there's no way I could have stayed on trail if I hadn't been able to get my weight back to a more normal weight. More normal weight that I finished at was 36 pounds lighter than I started, and that was about 5 to 6 inches less than what I started, so I needed a waist belt that was for a smaller waist. I went from a size 38 waist to a size 32, so I had to switch out the belt. And again, ULA was excellent about that. The outfitter that stocked the ULA pack in Hot Springs was excellent about it, and it made a huge difference in my ability to carry the pack all the way through the entire trip. Okay, so we'll go through all the components of the pack. As you can see, there's some wear and tear on the mesh here. There's some holes poked in it. There's also a hole in the pocket here, but nothing in the bottom. No other major problems with it. I am thinking about sending it into ULA and seeing if they can patch it, sew it, repair it, possibly get me a different mesh. But even if they can't, it survived well, and I wouldn't want anything else but the ULA pack, one of the ULA packs, because they worked for me. I did have a clip go bad. This clip broke here, and so it did not fit into the other ULA clip that was there, so I had to buy a new clip in Hanover, New Hampshire, and that clip worked the rest of the way, and it's still working to this day. Okay, we'll start with the pockets, and again I'll go through them just like they are. Powder, I was fighting chafing from a hotter time in Maine than we were used to, and so I had severe chafing, and my approach to chafing was a two-step approach. Sometimes I would powder, oftentimes I would use Aquaphor. Aquaphor was also great nightly treatment for feet, to keep them soft, to keep them the moisture from causing problems, and to just take care of my feet. I didn't really suffer from blisters. I used Solomon's most of the way. I did try Ultras from Hot Springs through Virginia. I just didn't think they'd ever make it through the rocks of Pennsylvania, and they didn't hold up real well. They weren't real durable, so I ended up in Solomon's for the majority of the trip, and I finished with a pair of Obos out of Rangeley, because Rangeley did not have any Solomon's. They were not Salomon providers. So I went with Obos to finish with, and I still hike in the Obos currently because they still have miles to go on them. Most shoes lasted over 450 to 550 miles, and so that's other than the Ultras, and so that's what I went with. But Aquaphor, excellent for your feet. I started with the Petzl Technica, and the casing on it broke, and it was hard to keep the batteries in there. I had problems very early on in the Smoky Mountains because it works off a pressurized system to hold the 3 batteries in place and push it outwards so that it would lock into place. It worked fine, but ultimately when I hit Vermont, the outer casing had busted from being in the pocket and getting jammed so much to where I had to buy a new headlamp, and I just went with the cheapest one I could find, Black Diamond Spot. It worked great. It does have a system whereby it flashes. You can set it to where it'll flash to where if it gets turned on accidentally, it doesn't turn on. You have to hold it down to get it to turn on. That's an important feature. I used it one time at the very end to get off of Mount Katahdin at night. If I were to actually do a lot of night hiking, I probably would go with the Storm. It's got a few more lumens. The way I used it, the cheapest Spot was fine. Head net, I carried it the whole way, but I basically used it one time in Connecticut for bugs, and everybody that night at that shelter was using the bug nets because they were crazy. The mosquitoes and the black flies were crazy. Other than that, I really didn't use it. I used bug spray itself to keep the black flies down when they were out for about a 2-week period, was all I used it for. But I do suggest you make sure you have bug spray on you. I would use a small bottle of Picardin, a small little spray container of Picardin, just as you need it. My other hip pocket is the Buff. I used a great deal in March and April, and then I really didn't use it that much after that. The rain kilt, Z-Packs rain kilt, I thought I would use a lot more than what I did. I ended up using it more as a ground cloth and a pack cover. As I set up camp in the rain, I ended up just going bare legs and getting wet when I got wet and not really worrying about it. It's still a good product. I still carried it the whole way, yet I didn't get as much use out of it as I thought I was going to. These are the Z-Pack rain mitts, the Vertex rain mitts. I love these early on. We had 2 nor'easters, and so I used these a great deal. Often without mittens underneath. They were often warm enough to where my hands would warm up inside them, and I didn't need gloves or mittens underneath. And that's why they stayed in the outer pocket. I have a 6-foot piece of rope to hang the pack, and I occasionally hung the pack. I also occasionally use this as clotheslines. I used it as extra lines in the shelter, and it did get used more than I thought it was going to, and so it stayed in the pocket and was worthwhile. And it's lightweight and used, so it served its purpose. Hat, I have a clip on the back part of the hat. It could be popped on and off pretty easily. The hat is the basic way you regulate body tip, and so it became important to have a good hiking hat, and I used this hat more than I thought I was going to, and every day I would start out with it on my head, and then I would clip it once I warmed up.